You're listening to Dramas Over Flowers with Saya, Anissa and Boromir. Hi, I'm Saya.
I'm Anissa.
And I'm Boromir. And you're going to be listening to our final thoughts on Lovely Runner.
미안해, 성재야.
정말 미래에서 왔어? 애가 상태가요?
이게 타임머신이야. 어머, 성재야! 네 시계가 내 영혼을 과거로 데려왔어. 널 살리라고.
가까이 오지 마.
And today we have some very special guests with us. Guests, you will note the plural. And they are two people who are very entertaining and special, who I did say that we kidnapped them off the street, but we didn't really. So first we have Hanah. Please welcome her. Hi, Hanah.
Welcome, Hanah!
Hi. Okay, I know that everybody's expecting perhaps me to say this, but it's the genuine truth. I am such a big fan of Dramas Over Flowers. You guys are literally like my comfort listen. Aww. If I ever have any boring, annoying task that I have to do, I will be putting on episode from whenever to listen to you guys. So I am super honored and excited and nervous to be here.
Oh my gosh, I actually didn't know this. This is so sweet. Yes. Also, like, listeners, we didn't pay her to say this.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No.
Also, I've been trying to lure both of them to the podcast for a while, so I'm also delighted to welcome one of the funniest people you will ever meet, Sarah.
I have met Sarah, and I can vouch for that. She is probably the funniest person I've ever met.
Oh, well, I mean, no pressure. Hey, everyone, nice to meet you. Following that intro is always fun, isn't it? When people are like, and now I emerge in my sort of pirate skirt and my mismatched cardigan.
But also, can I say that you sent some of the most poetic and lyrical reviews week to week? Well, actually, we probably only got that like 1 week because Sarah is a person, if you text her, she'll reply 6 months later. But she sent this amazing review of the drama somewhere midway. And I sent it to these guys and I was like, can we please invite Sarah on? Please, can we invite Sarah on? We've been trying to pin Sarah down. We've been trying to pin Hanah down for a long time. And we finally lured them in with this drama. So basically, I'm actually here because of the FOMO, because I can't remember a thing. The drama ended a week ago. I remember nothing. But these guys are here, so I'm here. And also feel free to just like call me by my normal name because I know that can get a little bit complicated. I do not have to be Saya today. I will just be Khadija. And yeah, keep it easy.
Okay.
All right. Welcome. We're so happy to have you here, both of you.
Thank you.
And yeah, and if it gets too loud and rowdy, I don't know, just roll with it.
We're going to try our best not to speak over each other, even though I know we are
100% going to yell at each other.
Yeah, we will.
Probably in excitement. Yeah.
One thing I will do though, if we mention other dramas, there is going to be a running list of dramas mentioned in the description. So if you're confused and you can't make out what we said, you'll find it in the description. With that, let me open a notepad so I can write down anything.
So usually we approach these episodes with a plan, but today the plan is we've grabbed our guests and we have our enthusiasm. And I don't know where we are beginning. Are we beginning at the end or at the beginning?
Yeah, we also usually start with a synopsis, but I feel like everyone and their grandma already knows and has seen Lovely Runner, so I don't think we really need to bring a synopsis at the beginning of this episode.
This episode is specifically for people who have either watched the drama or, know enough about it that they're interested in a spoiler version. So everything from this point onwards is going to be spoilery. Yeah. Everything will be spoiled. You'll be
and out of context.
Right. If you want to listen to our thoughts about Lovely Runner without spoilers, you can go back and listen to our episodes 1 through 8 episode that Boromir and I did, where we talk about the premise, we talk about the first 8 episodes, and there's a good portion of that is spoiler free. then you can come back and listen when you've watched the whole drama. Although, like, I will say, I have never seen a drama that the spoilers for this show were insane. Like, I could not go on the internet 30 seconds after it was released because people were spoiling it left and right. It was crazy.
Do you know what this drama made me realize? It made me realize that there's like an age difference thing in how the fandom works. Like, this is very much like the younger side of the fandom are the ones who've run with it. The way that it's exploded, the way that Byeonusuk has achieved this idol status because he played an idol. That's very young people energy. And that, like, it took me a little bit by surprise. But the other thing it made me think of also is, like, the last time there was this level of hype around a drama, I think I would say it was Healer. You know, people were watching and rewatching episodes every week, and it just, like, it had this whole huge, like, it was bigger than the drama. The fandom was bigger than the drama.
Is that the Ji Chang-wook one?
Yeah.
Yes.
And Park Min-young. But I will say Healer was only popular with international fans, and Lovely Runner was huge in Korea. This is, I feel like, I'm trying to remember which other drama was this big at home and also internationally, and I don't, maybe Goblin.
Not recently. But not in the same way. Crash Landing was a kind of,
I feel like Crash
more like
Landing
a national
was a slower
experience.
burn. Whereas Lovely Runner just kind of like blew up.
It exploded, my God.
Yeah.
And you know what? Because they had a tight budget, they focus entirely on digital promotions, and their digital promotion teams, they were bonkers. They're so good at marketing. Like, they release these short teasers with just behind the scenes moments and like just quippy, out of context character sort of skits with these two. And they were funny, they were on trend, and they made people, like, I'm talking about locally because international fans really weren't tuned into the pre-release promotions. They made the young people who had a TVING subscription, because this was only
TVing, I think they call it.
Yeah. I don't know what they call it.
Yes,
The whole TVing.
Yeah.
So TVing, which is a CJENM, well, them and also JTBC, like, they all got together and they run TVing, and they are basically trying to position it as the national alternative to like Disney and Netflix and all of that. So with TVing being really popular right now, and this was the most viewed drama. And apparently it crossed the numbers that the highest viewed Netflix drama in Korea has. So it's good. It did what they wanted a drama to do for TVING. So TVing. So it's basically everybody's so happy right now. But the thing to keep in mind is that this drama, while it had investment, especially from the streaming company to make it happen, because you can see it's polished. It's not like it's made on a shoestring budget. It didn't really have a marketing budget. It didn't really have any extra because they had no sponsors whatsoever. They were just putting it on streaming. Yeah.
Someone was joking on social media, like, they didn't get any PPL, so they all like made their own, and it was all like Sunjay's like ads on the sides of buses, and it's like so ads in the restaurants. It was so great.
It was perfect. And I did have the misapprehension because I thought, hey, that necklace is hella ugly. That must be a last minute PPL, but apparently not. They just made it with that, because their budget was low. The apparent design was gorgeous, but when they finally got it back, it was not that pretty. And the director was like, hell, I can't do this again. Let's just go with this. And apparently the writer was like, this was not my vision. What did you do? Apparently
the writer was really disappointed. Yeah, she was. Yeah. Really
but I feel like if they went to a really, like, a standard costume jewelry shop, teenage, like a Claire's, like whatever Korea's version of Claire's is, they could have found something really nice that was better than that.
I guess they wanted a custom piece and they had a really great idea, but then by that point they'd already spent the money on the custom piece and they didn't have time, so they just went
Kind
with it.
of.
Yeah.
So they
And by the way, this drama has gone through reshoots, right? They had a change of directors. So the first director shot it to a certain extent, and then you have they release pictures of like the previous version of certain scenes that we have seen compared to the final version. Like you had Imsol looking very different. Like that happy birthday video that Sol did.
Yeah.
Her look there, that was the 18-year-old Sol's original look throughout.
Oh,
And
interesting.
then this director came in and changed that up. And we have thoughts around that too, which we're going to get into later. But it just like this drama went through a lot. Plus, it was 3 years of pre-production for this drama. The writer, I keep forgetting her name, Ishion. The writer Ishion, who's previously adapted True Beauty, she wanted Kim Hae-yoon for this role. Like the moment so this is based off a webtoon, right? The Best of Tomorrow. However, Ishion made substantial changes here. And when she was writing Imsol, she had a very specific look in her head, and that was Kim Hae-yoon. Like she thought of Kim Hae-yoon when she was writing, and Kim Hae-yoon was a dream cast. So when they were looking for actors, she never expected Kim Hae-yoon to say yes, because this was a completely untested script. She's a relatively untested writer. They didn't have any budget. And again, the whole idol fan romance thing was putting off a lot of people. But Kim Hae-yoon immediately said yes, which was apparently something that shocked her so much that Ishion went home and cried.
Oh no.
And then you had like 3 years of not being able to find
The male lead.
The male lead, yeah. We all know that story. And finally they found, what's his name? Byeon-suk. And
name. The entire fandom is screaming right now. Horrible.
listen, I'm a Kim Hae-yoon fangirl. Okay, I love Byeon-suk, but I'm not a Byeon-suk fan.
No, definitely. Me too. She is the star.
Yeah.
But he took it on, and when it was being rejected by so many actors, they just let the script, sit in the back burner because they thought it was never getting off ground. And they finally found the perfect male lead. And honestly, Byeon-suk, perfect. Perfect casting. Yeah. I'm done.
So why don't we talk about our general thoughts on the drama then? Like the whole thing before we get into specifics. Yeah. Who wants to go first?
Sarah goes first this time.
Oh, but I have massive, massive heart eyes for this drama, and I don't know why. I don't know why, but I do know why, and I just love it so much. And just thinking about it just makes me so happy. They had like the brilliant second male lead who we loved, and then he wasn't given like a romantic thing at the end, but he didn't need to, and he's having that conversation with his dad, and he's got those wonderfully flirty eyes when he talks to Insol, and she's just like, "I'm not taking you seriously. You're such a player," and he's just like, "Nuna, thug Nuna, oh." So second male lead I love the first male lead, but I don't. There are dramas where I've loved characters before who are on the side, and there are dramas where I've loved the main two, and this drama as well as the concept, which for me, I just thought the writing was so intentional. I know lots of people are like, "Oh, I don't like this bit about the time travel thing." Look, you don't hate drama about time travel, okay? If you're gonna come with all your scientific logic and stuff, get out of here, okay? No.
Okay, bye.
Okay.
Bye.
This is an entertainment landscape, okay, where love literally conquers all. Don't come and be like, "What happened to..." No, my friend.
Can
No.
you exit the chat?
It's not. This is not the time to come with all your Stephen Hawkins that mentions timey-wimey. No.
I feel so attacked.
I have never been so viscerally passive-aggressive. Is that possible to be viscerally passive-aggressive? I don't know.
I think that was very aggressive minus the passive. I'm going now.
This is in my head, though. Like, you know that little gif of the cat, like, typing... That was me anytime somebody was like, "Oh, there's this." I'm like, "No, you have to." Like, I know lots of people hated the serial killer, and I can understand why.
No, I loved, eventually when I figured out what she was doing with him, I finally found a drama, a murder rom-com, as Anisa calls them, that used the serial killer perfectly.
Yes.
As in, he He just existed in the world. He
Narratively,
affected their
he
life.
worked so well.
Yeah.
I don't need to know anything about you. I don't even need to know your name. Like, the only reason we know your name is so that when the news report tells us about you, then we know that they were talking about you, because they can't call you the serial killer because they don't know yet. That's fine.
Did you not think, like Boroma particularly, like as this serial killer's quote unquote arc rolled on, did that not put you in mind of like No Face? Yeah.
I've been saying that from week 1.
Yeah, we talked about that in the previous Lovely Runner episode, actually. But I think what works is he doesn't have any connection with her. It's like a random act of violence that intersects with her life because of just things that happen. And then in the end, he ends up not really having anything to do with them because, like, the world just moves differently and things happen and other people come in his path. And, like, so even at the end, even Taesung doesn't know that she was ever in danger from the serial killer. And so, like, oh, there's that really beautiful scene where Sunjae is thanking him for everything he's done. And I was like crying.
He has no idea.
He doesn't really know why, but he still saved them. I mean, but like the fact that the serial killer isn't like obsessed with this one girl, like, and we don't need to know about his like sad childhood where he was abused and that's why he had to do these things. Like, I don't want to know.
I do feel cheated that Taesung didn't remember, like he didn't get memories back. The way that the other two, the way that
does he really need to remember like his unrequited love for Sol?
I know,
like he
but
got all the best parts of their relationship, which was like the friendship.
I really like the bromance.
Yes, I think
That's true.
the one thing where I didn't get all angry typing cat gif thing was when people pointed out that the trip to Inyuk's hometown never happened in this timeline.
Yeah, exactly.
They never lost Sunny in the sea. Taesung. It happened for us as viewers, so we still had the emotional weight of it. But that bonding moment between the three boys never technically happened in this timeline. And that just feels like a strange, weird loss. So then it's like Taesung still has Insol.
Sunny.
And he's maybe he still has Sunny, I hope so. And he's still got his...
That's a good point. Like Anissa, Sunny survives.
Sunny's life got saved. Justice for Sunny was served. I'm happy about that.
Insol did good, man. I felt so bad about that guy.
Oh my god, that was painful.
I loved so
They could have taken it out. I don't know why they just decided to just leave it there. Like,
right?
It's also extremely unbelievable to me. I highly doubt, having been to Korea, it's the kind of country that just leave a car in the sea and nobody calls emergency services to just take some action against it. Like it's
that
it's
was
just
so weird.
tad unbelievable.
Sitting in the ocean for hours and everyone's just like staring morosely at it. I was like,
I still felt Taesung's pain though, where he just sat on the rock and stared at Sunny and grieved her.
I love that.
I mean, he did that perfectly.
I mean, she's such a good actor. Like, Sunggun-hee is just great.
I think the whole Sunny bit was a bit random, but it was a comedic moment and it was a bit of levity.
Was that PPL there?
No, apparently not. Nothing was PPL. There was no PPL.
Well, you mean they literally blew the budget on a car and it wasn't even PPL.
And then they accidentally
could have
rolled it into the ocean. That wasn't intentional. Yeah, and then they were like, well, let's just use it for... Oh, that makes it it's painful.
At least, we know that TVing spent good money on this drama, even if nobody believed in it. Good on you, streaming platform.
So how do we all feel about... Since we're talking about people getting their memories back and stuff, how did everyone feel about this... The way they resolved this with, Sunjae finally remembering everything and them basically being the only two who know about like all these lives that they live.
Yeah.
Hanago, yeah.
I really was very, very satisfied with the ending, and I think that my overall impression of the drama was so positive because of how tight the writing was in the second half especially. And I've heard you guys talk about the curse of the second half of dramas, and I feel like there were so many recently that I was messaging you guys like, this is such an amazing drama, and then after episode 8 it like goes downhill. My Demon comes to mind, even Queen of Tears, which to be honest I did enjoy more, but hearing your critique, Anissa, really made me sort of see some of the flaws within the writing and how just the trajectory changed very much. So this time it was a relief to have a drama where the writing was so tight right up until the very end. And I do feel like it was necessary for him to get those memories back, because I think part of the side conversation that is relevant when it comes to time travel is, who are you as a person without your memories? And Sol herself, she is a different person, the older version of her versus the younger version of her, because of the life that she's lived. And as much as Sanjay loves both versions of her, I think to really meet her halfway and meet her at that level, he also needed to have the shared memories of all of those experiences and understand her motivations. It was the only way to truly bring them together at the same depth. So I was very satisfied with it. And I think they made it happen as well in a way that was quite natural. The fact that he was having these flash forwards and then it all comes to him. It wasn't, I don't know, it just seemed to fit.
It was really well done. Yeah.
Loser Sanjay was my favorite thing. Sanjay repeatedly falling in love with her was my favorite thing. And the script was so good. Ishion has my loyalty forever for just being able to harness the powers of time travel to give us this. 5 different romances, basically. Just different genres, different times, different situations, and he keeps falling in love with her. And Yonosuk really does deserve credit for the way he sold it. He sold the devotion to this girl. It's because I kept thinking, that episode 8, again, favorite episode. Damn, man, so good. So good, beginning to end. This was the episode where you had Sol come and meet top star, what's his name, Sanjay, and she is she keeps destroying, pushing him into fountains and just doing shit, and then she kidnaps him off the street, or he kidnaps himself off the street and takes her back to his place, and they have those few hours where she refuses to leave his side, and he's like, what is going on? But I don't really mind. And that could have been written so badly. Because after all, as far as his character is concerned, this is a girl I haven't seen since high school. She refused to talk to me back then. She said she wanted nothing to do with me. And suddenly she's cropped up now when her agency wants me to sign a movie I don't want to sign. He could have just seen this through the eyes of a cynic. But they wrote Sanjay so consistently that you could always trust that he would see the best in her. Somehow her sincerity will always come across to him, and he will always give her the benefit of the doubt. And this is so rare. It's hard to write romantic pairing like this. Usually you're like, why are you falling in love with her? Why are you trusting her? Why is this conversation illogical?
Yeah, especially when you have this guy who's been in love with the same girl for 15 years, never changing, unconstant, and it's never creepy, it's never weird, you never have a feeling of okay, you have so much going for you at this point, you're so famous, you have so many fans, why are you still hung up? No, he sells it. He has, they have those, they show him over the years coming back, right, always coming back to where her house was. There are so many ways in which they make it work. And to go back to your point, Hanah, about how beautifully they tied everything up with him remembering what they had gone through and what they had been to each other. I felt so sad when everything that happened in the first time travel and then her coming back to the present, when that was erased, because it was perfect.
Yeah.
It was perfect. It was a perfect reconciliation. It was a perfect high school romance, and then it was the perfect them reuniting as adults, college, and there are the moments. This was before I even got to college, right? College comes later, and I honestly didn't like the college part as much, to be quite honest, personally. But that first 8 episodes being wiped out was very painful for me, and so I'm so happy that they brought that back for him, so that, and also because she's been through so much. Like, she's watched the person that she loves die over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Kept trying to like save his life. Also was trying to save her own life because she thinks that someone's going to kill her. Is willing to sacrifice her own life so that he can live. Also to like just cut herself off from him so he can be happy. And she's like, whatever, if I die, like hasn't told her family. Like, this is really dark.
Yeah.
And so for him never to know that and only to have the happiness of like, oh, I really love this woman. She's great. We're going to spend the rest of our lives together. And for her to like carry that with her and not be able to tell anyone is extremely depressing. Like, that's not a happy ending, even if they end up together. Yeah. So I'm really glad that he did remember everything.
I also love what you said about him always giving her the benefit of the doubt, because when we find out how they first met, where she mistook him for a delivery driver, and that innocence, that joy, that kindness, where she gives him the sweet, she thanks him, she warns him, I'm sorry, I've got more books coming. We love a bookworm. And then she runs off. And then when we come to the future where she's erased that entire timeline, he doesn't give her the benefit of the doubt when he first sees her, actually. He does catch her, but the coldness in his tone, and I love how Yoon-suk managed to really convey the difference in character. This guy does not know who she is. He's got no idea. He's caught this random lady. He then sees her underneath the table. He assumes she's stealing something, and he's like... Right. And so they've got that. And I love what you said, Anisha, about us getting different genres, because then we've got this sort of like enemies to lovers genre happening, which we never would have expected, because we've seen our loser in love. We've seen him adore her, and I can't even remember the name of that DVD. What's it called? The one that everyone makes a big hoo-ha over. We see
Basic Instinct.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Never seen it, but I'm like, now I need to watch it to know what the whole deal is about. Probably not. We've seen the Romeo and Juliet moment.
It's extremely R-rated.
Oh, okay. No, I'm alright. Yeah. I don't need that.
That's why everyone was like, why are you renting this R-rated movie?
But yeah, just like the writer, and just so intentional. We understood why Sol erased her memories, and how she bumped into him and she was like, I need to get away from this guy because it's painful to see him with all the weight that she was carrying. I love, when I talk about the intentional writing, this drama for me is the actors really brought it to life. The directors and everyone who worked on it, they did the most amazing job. But the writing was just absolutely stellar. The circles, the loops that were created in this time travel drama. I just really appreciate the thought that went into, like, when you talk about, well, why is he still hung up on her? And then we see through the years him just crying at her door, Sol! And even when drunk with Taesung, when they're looking like, Sol with the pine cones. And it's just, which made me think, is Pine Sol literally called Pine? I don't know.
Maybe they don't have Pine Sol in Korea.
We don't have Pine Sol in the UK, but my first thought was, is Pine Sol literally just pine, if Sol means pine cone? But yeah, I just love the way it was written, because every time something happened, even if I didn't agree with it, I understood why and it made sense. And that's what I love about the writing.
Her motivations from beginning to end. And like, just to reiterate what Barma said, because it can't be said enough, she is driving the action in every single episode of this drama. And that's so cool to have the heroine continue to have agency right till the very end. Because like, I remember this, talking about another drama that's like starts with a fangirl, Her Private Life. First 8 episodes all about her, and it's supposed to be about her fangirl life. Her fangirl life gets thrown completely out the window, and the second half of the drama just becomes about the male lead's pain and his trauma and his like weird, like fated connection with her, like tragic like backstory with her family. It's so weird, and even like that actually impacted her family almost worse than his, but and yet he's the one that everyone's supposed to feel sorry for, and she's comforting. Like this
is an old disease that Dramaland has. Every drama, like romantic drama, starts with the woman's life as the premise, and that's the first half, and then the climax and the second half goes to the man, and it's been a problem in Dramaland for very. So I was dreading the second half, because what I wanted was Sol to remain the active, the action hero, for the story to remain hers and not do what happened in W2 World, where the woman who was hopping between cartoon and real life suddenly just gets lobotomized and becomes the most passive person, where the hero takes over the story. I just didn't want that to happen, because I just thought the story was more fun while Soul remained the sole time traveler. Because as you could see in the conversation in the fandom, and you guys might disagree, Sarah and Hanah, but I really didn't want Sunjae to become a time traveler. Because I thought that would defeat the thematic purpose, but also nullify the agency that they have given Soul. And she is the one with the dilemma. She's the one who's trying to preserve his life.
Yes.
What the hell would be the point of him time traveling? Like, it would completely destroy the story. And I was so happy they didn't do that. If this drama had been accepted by a big name male lead, though, they would have had to change the story.
Yes.
They would have had to give the second half to the
That's true.
male lead.
Yeah.
It's only because Byung-seok didn't have that stature when he took on that the writer could stick to her guns and give us this ending.
Although,
it would never have happened otherwise.
I will say, like, to give a shout out to another time travel, or not, I don't know if this counts as time travel or if it's like an alternate reality. Anyway, in Familiar Wife, the first half is about the husband, the second half is about the wife.
Yeah, I agree.
So
It's
that's
so
like
good.
an exception. And that's Ji-sung, so it's not like a small name actor.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is, like, the other thing about this is Byung-seok's character, like, Sunjae doesn't change. He doesn't really have any character development. He's the same person in the beginning as he is at the end, and he was the same person as an 18-year-old that he is as a 32-year-old.
Yeah.
But she has so much character development. So it's a much more rewarding journey for us as viewers to be in her perspective all the time and for her to carry us along in the story.
Yeah.
He's a great foil for her, but she's the protagonist.
No, I was just going to agree with what both of you guys were saying. I think this was something I also really appreciated about this drama. Her private life definitely is a example counter to what we've seen. And even I always remember, because I was so excited and loved at the beginning Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha, and like I was so obsessed with that drama. And then 8-10 episodes in, suddenly it's not about her rediscovering herself, this new life in sort of the rural areas, and being able to just encounter a different way of life that fulfilled her. Suddenly it's about him and his dark past in the city, and why did he move there, and then his development and him getting over that, which, it doesn't necessarily, it took away from the original premise. It wasn't necessarily a terrible storyline, but it is just frustrating where we never get to see sort of our female leads fulfill themselves in all their potential. And it is kind of, not annoying, but kind of harks back to what you were saying earlier, Khadija, where you're talking about like the attention that all of the series has got and Byung-seok has got, because obviously he's playing an idol character as well. And it's a little bit ironic to me that although we have an amazing female protagonist, the hype is majority still around Byung-seok. Perhaps this is because, as you're saying, it's appealing to that younger fandom, but it's just I want to see more love for Kim Hae-yoon and what she was able to achieve in this, for not to be dramatic, but like for all of us in terms of as women, like having a strong female protagonist who was the center of the story from start to finish. I don't want it to just turn into, oh, look, this amazing male lead again. Although obviously I love Byung-seok and he did an incredible job, but yeah, it's that is still really imbalanced.
Definitely.
But also, like, I feel that Lovely Runner has one protagonist, and I feel like we mistake Byung-seok as a lead when he's more of a support to her. Yeah. Like, he's that sort of classic love interest. He's not an active character, as you were saying, which actually means that he's not on the same level as Sol as a character. He's not a lead. She is the one single protagonist of the story. The story does not have more than one. And I think that gets lost because of this like hype and this huge like idol status that he's getting now, and the media attention that he's got, and obviously all of his variety appearances and things sort of add to the sense that he was in fact a lead. But if you look at the bare story, he is not a lead. I'm sorry to Byung-seok fans.
It's not sorry, but I read years ago about an exercise that they used to do in theatre groups where they would get the male and female actors to swap roles. So the guys would play the girls' roles and the girls would play the guys' roles, and the girls were like, oh yeah, this is so great, and the boys were like, I'm bored. because the female characters were given such little to do. And so I think in Lovely Run, maybe one of the things that appeals to a lot of us subconsciously is watching the girl get to be the action hero all the way to the end. All the way to the end. It's not like she saved his life and now he's like, oh no, because there is still that that theme of sacrifice where Sunjae's telling her, it's okay, I don't mind dying for you. And everyone's like, how romantic. And I'm like, that is a big burden for you to say to me that you are okay laying your life down for me and I'm supposed to just, carry on happily down the road without you.
Yeah.
And also Sol is like, no, I'm doing that. You're not doing that in this situation.
Sol is like, you don't have to die. And he's like, if loving you means I have to die. And she's like, no, you don't have to die. And he's like, then I don't mind. And she's like, you don't have to. I'm not talking to you about this anymore. I'm taking this into my own hands. Oh no, I forgot my memory. Let me get off this train. Bye, Sunjae. Because he's just not listening to her. And when there was that whole conversation about control, because she confuses knowledge with control, because she's trying to control what happens using what she knows. But knowledge and control aren't the same thing. We see when she's like, oh, it's changed now. It's changed now. But just because she knows that it's changed doesn't mean she can control what happens later on. And for me, that's such an interesting, that and her being an unreliable narrator make her such a fascinating and fun character to watch, because there's no certainty. There is a journey. We do watch her grow from, oh, you're depressed, so I'm just going to make you happy, and then you won't do what I think you're going to do in the future, to like, oh, I'm going to stop now. Sorry.
No, but like, say more. Why is she an unreliable character?
She's unreliable because...
narrator, sorry.
She's an unreliable narrator because when we first meet her, she doesn't even remember Sunjae. He saved her life. And every now and then, these memories keep coming back. So when she meets him on the bridge, and we see it from his perspective, he's like, she doesn't remember. She doesn't remember him.
So following Sol, we don't always have the full picture. That's an excellent point.
Exactly. So she sees him on the bridge and we're excited for her. We're like, you had an awful day, but your idol is there and he's seeing you and he's talking to you and how great that is. And then as we start to peel back the layers, we're like, oh, actually your relationship does go deeper than this, actually. So for her grief is this random idol who she's a fangirl for, who reached out of the heavens somewhere and touched her life in a way to save her, has now died. And she can't believe it because he's such a sunshiny person and he's so brilliant. Like, she doesn't remember getting kidnapped by some random dude. She's like, oh, I had an accident. And then everyone's like, this is a K-drama. It's not just going to be an accident. And then, Kim Young-soo.
Yeah. On that point, rewatching it, I actually wondered about this scene of when they first meet on the bridge and she doesn't remember that he's the one who saved her life. If this is actually the thing that sends him over the edge and leads him to commit suicide. We're already told that he's having a history of struggles with depression and stuff. He clearly wanted to retire, and then In Hyuk doesn't want him to, and he feels that pressure from the rest of his band members. And then he sees the girl whose life he saved, not remembering that it was even actually him. And just like the expression on his face, and when a few episodes later, when we find out that it actually was him who saved her, they show that whole what happened in the original timeline from his perspective, and how he's outside crying, when she's in there shouting at him. And then obviously he knows that he's called her in the radio booth, so obviously he got to say some words to her, but otherwise he never knows how that goes. And then to see her that, okay, she's his fan, but like she has no awareness. And I personally feel like that was just the straw that broke the camel's back. And this is perhaps why Sol gets that opportunity to not, obviously it's not her fault, she wasn't wrong for not recognizing it was him, but to just, she has that power not just as a fan, but as somebody who has the ability to bring that happiness into his life. And almost that he owes her, as she owes him in some way, because obviously he did that and she was unaware, and now she gets to go back and sort of do that for him. But I don't know if I'm wrong there. I might be reading too much into it.
Was it not implied that even in the first original timeline that he had been murdered?
Yeah.
Although it wasn't confirmed.
So I think we're supposed to understand that Kim Young-soo killed him that time too. Because he gets released from prison and he was taking revenge on him for putting him in jail.
So
when he saved
this is,
Sol.
But it wasn't confirmed.
It wasn't
that
confirmed.
Is true.
But
yeah.
I'll tell you what they expected us to pick up. So the thing is, I think Hanah legit theory And because the drama wasn't very specific about what happened in the original timeline, we can absolutely go with that because they had given us all of the seeds of it. He had so much conflict in his life. His friends were no longer his friends. He had conflict with his CEO. He genuinely
Like maybe it was
seemed very
left
unhappy.
ambiguous on purpose.
Yeah. However, you know what your the seed that they left in every timeline, one death or near death happens in the water, and in the original timeline, it happened when Byeonseok fell into the swimming pool. And there was
so always there has to exactly, there always has to be some death in the water. That was a really interesting sort of constant, which, you know, the whole way in which obviously it plays with time, there's so many variables, but there are some constants. I need to go back though now and rewatch the beginning and see if I missed completely that it was implied that he was murdered the first timeline as well. I thought that happened as a result of her manipulation in the second timeline.
No, I know what you're saying, but I don't think so, because even in the original timeline, you did have what was the evil serial killer's name?
Kim Young-soo.
Kim Young-soo.
Can we just call him No Face?
From two words. Yeah, sure, No Face. So No Face has a vendetta against Sanjay. The only problem with this, again, I think it was deliberately left vague because there are so many plot holes. How the hell did this guy get through security to...
Sarah's side-eyeing Burma right now. Bombastic side-eye.
Sanjay's apartment, there was a doorbell. And after the doorbell, he went for the dive. Did he jump himself? Did he, get pushed? It's left so vague. So honestly, we
never
can go
find
with either
out.
theory.
Can I fill in the loophole? We
exactly.
see very often that he buys animal tranquilizers. There's a scene where they talk about they've tracked him buying animal tranquilizers, and the fangirl in me thinks that an unsuspecting Sanjay opened the door in the neck, in the water. And when they did the autopsy, they would have found his medicine and would have assumed that the tranquilizers might have been one of the medicines that he was taking. Because, people
Okay, I like this theory. I'm behind this.
Yeah.
That
That
makes
is
sense.
also a theory.
That makes sense to me.
Let's keep both theories because honestly, vague enough that anything could work.
Can we just tell everyone that Sarah is doing angry cat typing gif right now?
Don't tell them that. Let them think I'm saner than I am.
They need to know why we're laughing. Otherwise, it's out of context laughter.
But yeah.
I did love how this drama just, the consistency that the writer provides. Like, the first death happened, he fell into the water. The final death of the serial killer happened, he fell into a body of water. And it's just, I love it. It's like, there are so many weird things that also happen that I have questions about, but none of that really matters because, there is like an emotional consistency throughout the drama.
Else.
I will say, is it okay for me to say something that I didn't like about the drama?
Yeah, I think we do need to, we can't just be complimentary.
I'm
That's not
waiting to be
us.
given an in.
Yeah.
Go on,
I
Anissa.
do feel, and I don't know if this was, maybe there was a different writer that was working on these episodes. Maybe it was just an editorial decision for them to go into slapstick humor land. But I did feel
Imgum.
there was some time. Yeah, so Imgum and what was her name?
Hyunju?
Hyunju, yeah. So Seol's brother and her best friend, their entire... Was there just a rookie writer that was assigned that couple to write their scenes throughout the whole drama? And they're just it felt so off in tone from the rest of the drama. Their characters didn't add anything. They weren't funny. They weren't cute. I was not rooting for them. So that, and then also the entirety of episode 11, once they get together in college, just felt so it just felt so off from the rest of the drama, which felt like every scene mattered, every line of dialogue was purposeful, every interaction was leading to the next character development moment, or it was funny. I didn't really find it funny, and I also found it really it felt like they were just filling time.
Okay, I am going to contradict myself and be a massive hypocrite because Imgum and Hyunju are the one loophole I don't get, because in the original timeline, and maybe this happened, in the original or the first timeline, Im Sol gets a ride from Taesung to her house to stop the fire. And that's how the first sparks start between her brother and her friend. But if they move out of their house before that can happen so that she doesn't ever see Sanjay, did that fire ever happen or not happen? But then did she get a ride from Taesung? That's the one bit where I'm a bit like, and that's the part of. I really like So-hyun, who played the best friend ever since Business Proposal, when she shouted the immortal lines.
You know, I have no 친구.
She's great. She's an amazing actress. I feel like she was wasted here. Honestly. She was
Her
iconic
high school
in
self
Business
was
Proposal.
really shrill. I thought she
She
was.
was also wasted in Alchemy of Souls. Like,
Oh, that makes me so sad for her.
yeah.
She's
so
such.
much potential.
When she came, she picked up Sol and she was like, "I'd do anything for you, bestie. That's why I bought this car." I was like, okay, clearly I need that's a level of friendship that I have yet to unlock. Like buying a whole new car to cart my friend around.
No, but you know what? When the same thing happened in Marry My Husband, we all booed it. We were like, Mark Williams, you did not buy that car for your sick friend. You just did this as plot device because a truck of doom needs to hit something.
That was very different. That was a very different relationship. With Gunju, like, these girls have been besties since they were, like, in diapers.
Yeah.
So I could believe that she would buy a car that her wheelchair-using friend would be able to actually sit in for the very purpose of being able to give her rides. Like, I totally bought that. But then, like, we never see that version of Hyunju again.
Yeah, and I was a bit sad as well when Sol went to that interview and they had no stairs, so she couldn't access it. And the next time it's like, it's fine now, she's got legs and heels. Girl, go get that job. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
That was great for accessibility.
yeah, like if I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about
Also,
Bond
like,
Cinema.
If I was her, I would not apply to the same job at a company who was like, we're not going to hire you because you would need an elevator.
can't-
Like,
She didn't know, right?
Yeah.
Like when she got her job initially.
No, this was 18-year-old Saul making the decision.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
That's true.
Yeah.
She doesn't have that foreknowledge, so she wouldn't know that they were discriminating against people with disabilities.
And the only reason the accessibility in the wheelchair thing really strikes me is because having to push a pram around for 5 years really makes you appreciate how inaccessible places are. Even when there is a lift, it's 2 miles away. Eventually,
Yes.
I will not be pushing a pram around. For people in a wheelchair, it's not like suddenly, ta-dang, you're going to get a watch and then it'll be okay
Yeah.
and then you can get that job. And I have a friend who's got a frame and she has turned up to places for job interviews and they've been like, we don't have to get you into the building. That's not her problem. But so to watch that bit of Sol's character just sort of be erased and used for plot movement / pity / sympathy, but then it's sort of implied that it's the serial killer's fault that she couldn't get the job because he's the one that meant that she was in the wheelchair, made me feel a bit like, meh.
That's very true.
I agree.
I agree
with that.
Yeah.
I honestly wasn't sure what to feel when she suddenly can walk again.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know. I feel like it took a lot of I was so excited to have a female lead who uses a wheelchair and it's just like like no one is making a big deal out of it. That's just her life.
Yeah.
And then they just erased it halfway through
Yeah.
or whatever part of the way through.
Like her video editing skills where she's doing it for like the shaman lady and she's in her chair and she's got a job, she's doing this job, she's got enough to be spending
Yeah.
on Sunjae's what? She's making money somehow. And I just
Yeah, fangirl life is expensive.
Lord. I was like, does being a fangirl magically make you rich? Because if so, I'm ready to
wish
join the
it
army.
did.
I'm ready. My bank account is ready for me to join the army.
I love that. Like a tweet that I found in the fandom sphere, and somebody was like, "Remember, Sol could buy her own car once she stopped spending on like random fangirl shit."
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she also. Well, I mean, she had a full-time office job though. She wasn't freelancing anymore because of the aforementioned Bond Cinema, who was discriminating against her when she was in a wheelchair. So
Yeah, it's a meme tweet. It's not legit. I have a recommendation for anybody who wants to watch a drama with an actually disabled heroine, and that's Will Love in Spring. She is an amputee, has a prosthetic leg, and that does not magically get cured by the end of the drama. Excellent romance. Watch CDrama though. So.
Oh,
this
you
one is
told
on
me
my
about
list.
this.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna try to watch this at some point.
Yeah.
I know that they tried. I mean, I think that the drama is slightly aware of the problem in a very low-key way, and that's why they have her directing a film with a wheelchair-bound protagonist in the end, but, like, it's not really enough. I don't know.
Yeah, and also this was an addition in the drama. This was apparently not part of the original webtoon. I have not read the webtoon. I cannot verify it. This is something that other fans told me. And so, interesting addition. Not sure how. I think they were trying to show. I know why they added it. Sorry, I had forgotten the context. The context was that apparently in the webtoon, when Imsol travels to the past, but not to 2008. Apparently, it was a shorter travel for her in the webtoon. She was focused entirely on Sunjae, whereas they wanted Imsol to have something of her own to change, like some part of her own life to improve. So when Imsol goes back in the drama, she doesn't just change Sanjay's fate; she changes her own fate as well. That was something they wanted her to do.
And she does say it when she collapses at the end of the first half. She goes, "Oh, I saved myself," and then it sort of like does a stretchy timey-wimey with taking you back to the future thing, which I guess does make a difference from Sunjae saving her. Which
I was wondering, like, because, as a veteran of many time travel dramas, I was wondering how they would play out the sort of the fate demands a life aspect. And I think it stayed pretty true to the fate demands a life formula. But then, like, for example, we were talking about the problem with Marry My Husband was that, like, to what extent do events have to repeat? Like, in Marry My Husband, it was like the burn and like all of those little things.
No, but I'm sorry, just interrupting you for a second because it bugged me so much. The conceit, the arrogance to think that you can trick fate by just putting the same clothes on, the same candies in the right place, the same shoes, and then the fate would be tricked into killing the one you want the fate to kill instead of your bestie or your girlfriend. I just hated that so much. I'm sorry.
And I will point out narratively, this is probably why they use a serial killer, because trying to trick fate is such a difficult thing to write well. So they were just like, we can't say that I think that's also why they sometimes put like deities in as well, or mythological tigers.
Yeah, like it varies.
Yeah, but this time they were like, a serial killer is just simpler, okay? We don't have time to flesh out the mythology. We spent our budget on a car, guys. We're just gonna get an extra, and then we're just gonna nerf him in the last quarter, and that will just sort everything. Which I mean,
Can I just say the actor who plays Kim Young-soo being like the hugest fanboy of the romance.
He's surprisingly cute. What?
It's so cute. It's so cute to see his social media posts and his like press appearances where he was just like.
Also, that final sketch that they have of his face, he made that his DP on Instagram.
You know what that reminds me of? The character. It Search www.
Yeah.
Was it Idong? I want to say Idong Wook's character, where he's like an up and coming actor, and he's
Lee Jae-wook?
Not Lee Jae-wook. Idong. Is it Idong Wook?
Idong Wook is just in as a cameo in Search www.
No, it's not Idong Wook. Oh my goodness, I've forgotten.
Lee Jae-wook.
It's Lee Jae-wook.
Lee Jae-wook is the one who's paired against Ida Hee, right?
Yes, one syllable away. My bad. Yes. Alchemy of Souls lead him. Whoops. And he's like an up and coming actor.
Yes.
He's like playing a villain. And Ida Hee's character really falls for him, and he's like playing a villain, and he's like, I hope people enjoy my villain's role. And I'm just like, oh, that's so cute that you're like, I hope people enjoy that I'm a baddie.
Yeah, I remember.
I mean, as long as they're not being baddies in real life, you can appreciate it.
So I want to hear. So Khadija has been like slightly teasing her unsatisfaction with the drama for a while, and I want to actually hear what you have to say.
Yeah,
I was in the middle of a point, but I can't remember what it was.
Don't this to me.
It was about the fate demands a life.
Oh, fate demands a life. Yeah, you're right. Oh yeah, like to what extent would that like apply in the rules of Seoul's time travel? So like the burn that her mum got from the fire, because Sarah, you mentioned the fire. The way that like she was able to avert that completely and it never came back in any form. Like, I didn't know what to make of that. But I feel like what it was then saying is that apart from fate demanding a life, everything else was like free, like it was fair game. Like you could change things without having to pay a price for them. So that was like an interesting way to take it. But also, like, what time travel dramas do, or like the way they set up the time travel is also like interesting because, like, is fate the villain, which I think it was in Marry My Husband, right? Whereas like fate wasn't a villain in this drama. Fate was the helping hand. Like the time travel was a gift to Sol to change things, and so it didn't have that sort of malignant, malevolent presence that it has in other dramas. But I did have a problem with like maybe the very foundational premise of the time travel, which is I have two problems. I have other problems. One, that Sol interpreted the reason for everything as the way to save Sunjae's life was not to meet him. But I don't think that... I feel like she's got the wrong end of the stick there. The point was, like, what she should have done is avoided meeting the murderer, because it's putting yourself in his line of sight that gets you kidnapped, it gets him killed. Like, don't lose your phone. Don't fall asleep on the bus and go too far. Don't be in the middle of nowhere and, like, you know, let this guy catch you. You just have to never be in his line of sight. And then you can have your romance. You can have the relationship with him from that age. Like you can have had it for that whole 15 years instead of having to give it up. So I had a problem there. And I don't see it as a choice for the writers to have picked that. I feel it's an oversight. Like they needed to make these stakes exist.
Yeah, but part of the problem, especially with Sol being an unreliable narrator, is if I ask myself as a viewer, where did they first encounter the taxi driver?
Exactly. I don't think she has a way of knowing when he first noticed her.
Yeah, she doesn't know.
Guess. But I would have liked her character to have had that thought process and be like, well, how can I stop it?
But the problem is that then that would turn Sol's character into an investigator. And the drama really didn't want Sol to become an investigator.
And she
I like that.
Yeah,
I would have hated it.
And she also doesn't realize that Kim Young-soo is involved in Sunjae's death until the second time when she goes back, and they're in college, so it's too late. She's already encountered him. So by the time she realizes that it's a human at play, she can't go back far enough to stop that
But by the
interaction.
time she goes back in the final time after Sunjae dies, is that first time travel before
She travels back
encounters him?
absolutely at the earliest point. Yeah.
Right. So she hasn't encountered him at that point yet.
I don't think she does encounter the taxi driver in that timeline, though, does she?
But the interesting thing about that timeline is the drama doesn't show us her interactions with other people. They show her leaving with her family as quickly as she can, but for instance, she definitely had a similar interaction with Taesung, because Taesung stays friends with her. He calls her Nuna. So she has had interactions with Taesung. We don't get to see it. So we don't know in that timeline, unbeknownst to her, if and when the serial killer might have noticed her, because clearly he did. Otherwise, years later, 15 years later, when this guy comes out of prison for unrelated crimes, he goes and tracks her down. So Sol just does not know when it is that he notices her. Clearly, even in that final timeline, he does.
Does she not know that it was through her phone being lost?
No, I don't think she ever finds out, because he speaks to her mum and her grandma, and they're the ones that give out her address to the random serial killer. Like, can you stop doing that?
Oh yeah, so that's another thing I had a problem with, which is like when you get to all of these sort of life-threatening situations, nobody ever helps anybody by hiding information from them. The best way to protect people is to share information. Like, share it with Sunjae. Like, you guys need to talk about it and figure out a way that you can both be protected and safe. And like, you put people in danger by not sharing that information, so that made me mad.
I agree that she needed to share it with her parents. Like her mom, there was no reason she was
I was
hiding
really
it from her
annoyed
mom.
that she didn't tell her family. Yeah.
Yeah, that was very
Yeah,
stupid.
all
But
of that.
her not sharing it with Sanjay made total sense to me because this is a 34-year-old woman and Sanjay is 18 or 20, in the final.
Which takes me to my other my
Yes,
other
please.
problem, which is, so I guess this is mainly for like Sarah, Hannah, and Barma. That how do you square 33-year-old Sol falling in love with a teenage Sanjay? Because I really had trouble with that. Like,
Why isn't this a question for me?
Yeah,
I
why-
thought you had already given misgivings about this in the but
had.
it's a question for everyone. How do you square it?
I don't square it. We were all waiting, at least I was completely waiting for them to get to the, future, present timeline. I didn't want that extended period.
She recognizes that Taesung is like,
A child.
a teenage kid, yeah, and like not somebody a 33-year-old would like. Why doesn't she have the same reaction to him? And like, I have trouble with that. I'm willing to go along with it, but I do, at the end of the day, want to know, like, how did we square that?
I also had, before y'all defend it, or if you are going to defend it, who knows, maybe you're not going to defend it. I was like, okay with them having a crush on each other because, like, you can't control that. And he is technically an adult. It's just that there's a huge age gap. But, like, once they start dating and it's like goes on for a while and, like, they're having a real relationship and, like, time passes, I'm not really sure how much time. I was a little uncomfortable with that, to be honest.
I think the first time when Sol went back, and I think I don't know whether this was showing the gap between them or her immaturity at a young age, because people were complaining about how can she be so mature when she's 30, whatever. Laughs in refuses to be self-reflective. Anywho, so she goes back. She's in school, and the very first thing my girl does is she runs out of school, runs across to her idol, gives him a hug, not realizing that my dude is like just in his skivvies, and tells him, "I love you. I'm so glad you're alive. I love you." And the dude is like, "Ma'am, this is a swimming pool." And I didn't.
Take the crazy woman out.
So I think we forget that at first she wasn't interested in him romantically at all. She was just focused on keeping him alive, and then the romance sort of like even when, and I think what the writers tried to do, whether they were successful or not, what they tried to do was to avoid the whole Sol is 34, Sanjay is 18. When he kisses her and she's drunk and she doesn't remember, #unreliable narrator, we can always rely on you. And she's trying to remember what the heck happened, and she's listening to her MP3 and she's going down, and then her soul gets booted from the drop kick to the future. And then we have 19-year-old Sol being propositioned by Taesung, and she goes, nah. And so I think they try and navigate it by being like 34-year-old Sol's not here yet, because then that would have been a really awkward thing where 34-year-old Sol is now making romantic decisions for 19-year-old Sol with 19-year-old Sanjay after a night because even the whole drinking thing where she forgets that she's 19 and she's drinking, they don't really cover that apart from everybody looking at her disapprovingly. And I think that's where they.
Well, she doesn't know she's drinking, right? She doesn't know there's alcohol in that thing that his dad gave her. She just gets drunk.
She just thinks it's like.
Yeah, she's like, oh, I feel kind of drunk. And he's like, there was alcohol in that. Yeah, right, exactly.
It's like a very Anne of Green Gables moment.
Yes, very Anne of Green Gables.
So I think that's why we ended up with the dating Taesung arc, because then she has a relationship at that age, but 34-year-old Sol keeps saying, "You are so young. You are so young. You are so young." But because she knows that she can't cut off Taesung because she's in that relationship due to 19-year-old Sol's actions, she can't pursue that relationship with Sanjay at that time. I think it's a really weird place where she was a fangirl. So she was so much of a fangirl, it didn't occur to her that he could be interested in her in any way, shape, or form. And then by the time she does kind of realize, then we get that flash forward to the sultry 34-year-old Sol and Sanjay moment in the apartment before he heads
The doorway kiss. The epic doorway kiss.
So I think the writers were aware of that tension and they tried to take steps to navigate it. I think if we think of it purely as a 34-year-old, because even in some Nuna romances, like, what is it? Whenever there's like a teacher, as an ex-teacher, whenever there's like a teacher-student thingy, and it's like, I fancied you since I was a student. I'm like,
Oh no! Yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
It's rampant. It's rampant. Okay, I have a defense.
Just to clarify, they don't actually start date like Sarah said. She doesn't have any feelings for him in the beginning, and like he obviously falls in love with her pretty quickly. I mean, we know that he loved her from the beginning, but like she doesn't. They don't actually start dating until they're in college. So like, I mean, she's 32 or 34 or whatever, but like she's in college, Soul's body, which I still feel is. His brain isn't fully developed, so, but, like, at least they're, I don't know, 20, 21. I mean, he's not 18 at that point. Go ahead, Borama. What
He's
were you
like
gonna say?
19.
Yeah, he was 19.
Like a year later. I don't think it makes
Yeah, I don't remember.
I think what made it okay for us while we were watching was the fact that for Sunjay, this is like repeating 15 years over and over as, you have different timelines happening. For Soul, the entire thing from beginning to end is like 5 months total, 6, like from the moment Sunjay dies in the first original timeline till, the final timeline, she has lived only like 4 or 5 months. And she's just been going back and forth through different timelines. She has had so little time to process everything, fall in love with Sanjay, then be yanked back to her time, over and over again lose him. She's practically functioning on trauma and just bewilderment. She's a constant fish out of water. So when in college, even though she's crying and she's trying to stay away from Sanjay, because she basically spent most of the episode depressed because she's like, he's going to die. I need to stay away from him. She's very depressed. So when they get together, it's because like you could almost see like she is trying her best to keep him alive. Like at least she told the cops she was using actual investigators to solve the problem. Her getting together with him seemed at that point to be one of those things where you do like, he's alive. I do love him. I just want to spend some time with a Sanjay who's alive. And because she's told him the truth, because he knows her true identity, it wasn't that creepy. Because at the end of the day, both of them knew that she could leave at any moment and then he wouldn't see her for the next 15 years.
Yeah. And he was also aware that she was a time traveler and therefore of the age difference, but they made him more a consenting adult by that point. Like a 15-year-old, 19-year-old is kind of like, cool. And you're like, that's not cool. No, someone in here should have more sense to let you know it's not cool. Go back to your books and actually study that thing and learn more than 200 English words. Whereas in college where she's like, I'm a time traveler. I'm worried something terrible is going to happen to you. It's like all the cards get laid out on the table. And then we have that whole tension between what he decides to do. And our loser in love, as expected, is like, so it doesn't matter. Just be with me right now. Let's just make the most of today. But it's true. And I think they got a point where people were just like, Sanjay needs to leave her alone because Sol is like, I'm not interested. Leave me alone. Which even if she wasn't a 34-year-old in a 20-year-old's body, I mean, that threw up a little bit of... And maybe that's why the college years were a bit murky because they were trying to untangle that bit. He was very much like, I really like you. And she was... And what did In-hyuk say? He's like, you got rejected. And Sanjay was like, are you sure? If they told you that they're a time traveler and that's why they can't be with you, you got rejected. And he's like, oh.
Can we just give an award to In-hyuk for being the best friend?
And the best flower boy.
Oh my gosh. From the beginning to the end, he's like being Sanjay's wingman, providing flower petals in his like epic proposal moments, always being there for him when he's like crying over her, trying his best to like help his poor friend. He's like, he's doing therapy. He's doing all kinds of stuff.
He gave the worst advice, though.
Yeah, I mean, but points for sincerity and genuineness. No one should listen to his romantic advice.
Yeah.
Can we let Hanah weigh in? I think she's been waiting.
No.
What, you going to say something?
I wasn't a Perma said it all, which I'm really happy about because she said it far better than I would have. But I agree that I think that it was because of this imminent return that he was aware of, that then she was okay with starting the relationship with him, because it was that moment and she was like, you were supposed to go to America, why didn't that happen? And he's like, okay, but there's something different here, right? And when he confesses that, she's just kind of like, all right, well, if this is what allows me to as well keep him alive in a better way, given that he hasn't gone to America, I'm gonna sort of just go along with this. But then there is an awareness of, okay, I'm gonna go any day and then I'm not gonna see you for 15 years. So there was some hesitancy from her there.
Anissa got so mad at Sanjay when he ditched his America plan and went back home, and she's like, oh, his poor dad spent so much
bought
money.
him business class tickets. This man runs a restaurant. He bought his son business class tickets. The boy left the airport and came home for a girl.
When he left the airport, my first thought was his dad, his poor dad who has suffered to all of Sanjay's. His poor dad. And then when they had the Romeo and Juliet moment, I could understand why his dad was like, no. I was like, yeah, to be fair, Sanjay, are you going to pay your dad back? We know he's going to, because he's going to become like a famous idol model / actor. Yeah.
That's true, but in that moment, I was like, Appa, like, I'm so sorry. Like,
okay, that reminds me of my other point of contention, which is, so Sol expends so much energy to make sure that Sanjay does not become an idol and a member of Eclipse. And then when she finally achieves that, she immediately tries to overturn it. She's like, oh no, I took your idol career away from you and that's what you really wanted to do, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, girl, pick what you want. Like, he's not in Eclipse.
But I think that was because she realized that he doesn't die in the second timeline because of being in Eclipse. And so she's like, I took that away from him for nothing. I need to actually stop. I was focusing on the wrong thing. I should have been focusing on the murderer. Yeah.
Because initially she thought it was his idol career that killed him.
Yeah.
Go for me.
So it's not an objection, it's a question I have. And it's a time travel question, Sarah. so sorry.
Uncomfortable face.
You have high school Imsol. 18, 19-year-old Imsol, whose body is suddenly taken over by her future time-traveling self, okay? She loses 10 days. Future self goes back to her own timeline. Sol comes back and she's like, I woke up to Taesung proposing to me, but I have no memories of the last 10 days. She goes to her mom and says, take me to a shaman. I was possessed. I did all of these things I have no memory of. And so her mom has an entire ritual and it's hilarious, but from the perspective of the poor girl, it's horrible, right? And then she gets possessed yet again, and this time Sol stays for months. Okay, imagine the girl coming out of that and her mental state at that point. Despite that, girl goes to college and clearly, has told Sanjay to back off because she doesn't know what the hell is happening. She got kidnapped already. She's gone through a lot of trauma and stuff. No matter how many timelines you have, basically this girl gets to finally live out 15 years, okay? Gets into Bond cinema, has her own dreams, maybe has a crush on a colleague, maybe, has dreams, and and bam, she's possessed again by time-traveling him. So
I have, my thoughts about this, which is, I don't know if you guys watched Burma's video about this as well. And has anybody watched 9?
Yes.
Sarah and Hanah, have you both watched Someday or One Day?
But I heard Perma speaking about it, so it's somewhat Someday or One Day, definitely.
So I feel like, like I said earlier, that Sol is the sole protagonist of this story. Sol 1 is the sole protagonist of the story, as in original time-traveling Sol. All other souls can be dispensed with. They actually are not the main characters. Sol 1, OG Timeline Sol, is the main character. And this can be a little bit of a spoiler for 9. I don't know if you guys
It's a really old drama.
When did
really
9
great
even
drama.
come out? Gosh, I watched 9.
2013, I think it was.
2012 or something.
I don't remember the
Yeah.
end of it, and I watched it. So don't worry about any spoilers.
So,
there.
okay. So, like, it's... can I preface this by saying that there are 2 types of time travel dramas. One is a time travel romance, and one is a time travel thriller. And I am the time travel thriller person.
Yes, we know.
In case you didn't know. So time travel romance is like less my bag. So I only watch them sometimes. There's a lot of time travel romances that I haven't watched, like, Go Back Spouses, Familiar Wife, all of those, haven't watched them. But I did watch Rooftop Prince. So what you have to sort of go to relate to what Boroma's video is about, which is that there's the whole character of the soul who has been losing time, losing days. Like, that's a character, but that's also a character who's discarded in favor of Sol 1, OG time traveling soul. So
I should have numbered them. Damn it. I did 18-year-old soul, 33. I should have just numbered the souls. You're right.
So what happens in 9 is basically that Ijinuk's character, which by the way was rubbish as a romance, like, don't even, it was absolutely the worst romance. It will put you off watching the drama. But the time travel was done really, really well. It was the drama. Because of this ending, it drove me to participate actively in K-drama fandom because of what happened at the end, which is OG, I can't remember the character, but OG Ijinuk 1 dies. Park Sonu. So he dies, he sacrifices himself so the other Sonu can live. And that is, like, it's a really, it's very wrenching. It's the most wrenching thing in that drama, because you are like, the character that I have followed through this entire show dies. You're left with a Sonu who lives, but it's not the Sonu you followed. Like, Lovely Runner does the opposite. It gives you Sol 1 living through it all, and she's the one who emerges victorious. Like, she messes with her own life and wins. So everything else, like Sol 2, Sol 3, they kind of don't matter because they're not the main characters. She's allowed to do it because it's her own life. She's not another person. She's a person fixing her own life. So that I actually thought was quite... I don't know if it was intentionally planned to be that way, but I thought that was a good resolution to what could have been a tragedy.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Sol 1, 1.
Sol 1 1.
Sol 1 1. But I also agree with that sort of reading of it. And as much as I found your video so interesting, Paroma, and I definitely would recommend it to anybody who wants to sort of take a more critical look at this, and your previous time travel video, which has contextualized every time travel drama I've seen since then. But I feel like, as much as, okay, they're different people, to what extent are perhaps we overstate as well the differences between Sol 1 and like Sol 2, Sol 3. Like, other than her particular experiences that obviously only happened in one timeline, I think many of her other interests would stay the same. Like her interest in filmmaking, which led her to go work in the production company, her other things in her life, her relationship with her family, all of those aspects stayed the same. Because I feel like, as much as obviously we are our memories and experiences, there is something unique in the essence of all of us as well. Not to get too like philosophical into like the nature of human beings, but I just feel like, our inclinations towards certain things are part of our characters, and so I feel like Sol 2 and Sol 3 had similar inclinations, and if they had been exposed to more information as Sol 1 had, then I feel like they would have gone down the same path. So it's not as much of a loss as we may have been perceiving.
Just to explain my out of context laugh, Sarah just typed in the chat discussing Sol Soul.
Yeah. Sol 1 1, and now we're discussing Sol.
See, I won't argue with you guys on this, but I don't think quite works. Like Soul 2 and 3 might have been very similar people, but Soul 1 is distinctly different because of her disability.
Yeah, but yeah, trauma and disability.
It can widely change the trajectory of her life. Like her college experience would have been different. Her ability to make friends, meet people, just job opportunities. Could she ever do part-time work? Probably not. Every student otherwise does it. Everything would have.
But I also feel that's why the choice to preserve Soul 1 was better, because you got to keep the soul that went through those things rather than the happy, carefree soul. Like, that's what added the texture to her character. And also there's that interesting discussion which, like, Borma, you and I had about, like, how much does trauma inform your personality? And I think this was the only way they could have streamlined the way that they told the story. They could have used all of that weird filler time to sort of explore the time travel mechanics, but also it wasn't that show. It wasn't the show that was about time travel mechanics.
I think they did a smart thing by not overly explaining the time travel mechanics, because I'm with Sarah. As long as it's not distracting, like, time travel isn't real. I don't need to have a scientific explanation of how the time travel works. It just needs to have some basic rules. It has to be consistent, and it shouldn't betray the spirit of the story that they're telling. Like, I'm okay with it. I don't need to know, like, was there a god who decided to make this particular rule? Was there a scientific device? Like, I don't care.
Also,
I don't care
what
about
happens when you try to explain time travel, and if anybody's watched Dark, this is a spoiler for Dark, the German thriller. What happens when you try to explain it is that it becomes an impossibility that you can only clean up, you can only fix it by, like, cutting off all of the buds, like cut off everything, every like loop, like the only way to solve those loops is to just like, you know, snip them all.
And then it's not fun anymore. Like, it takes out all the fun.
It's
that
dark.
You get
It's very, very, very dark.
Time travel stories. Like, I think the fun thing about time travel stories is not about the science, quote unquote, of the time travel, which doesn't exist anyway. It's about having new possibilities in your life and having the opportunity to go back and change things, and what would that actually mean, and what if the first version was the better version? Like, what if you screw it up so bad that you have regrets about the time? I mean, there's so many things, right? What's the price that you have to pay? Like, that's the interesting stuff.
And the echoes of memory part of it as well, because I was afraid. There was a point where I was like, do I want to I felt like they were going to go the Rooftop Prince route, which was... I hated that so much.
That was such a bad drama.
Basically, like, what happens at the end? She goes back... or was it to the past? And she meets, like, the same guy. But it's not the same guy. It's a completely different guy. He doesn't have any memories. And we're meant to believe that this was the person that she... And, like, memories are important, okay? And, like, if you... memories do indeed make you who you are.
I mean, it's a cultural landscape where amnesia is an important narrative trope. So we know that memories are important because we've seen what happens when people don't have any.
Yeah.
Maybe there's, like, this inconsistency between, we're saying on one hand, memories make you who you are, and then on the other hand we're saying, well, like, Soul 1, it doesn't matter, you know, like, whether she remembered or not. But I think for the relationships that you build with other people, you need those memories because that's your history with them, versus Soul was going to be Soul. It might be a different version of her without some of those memories, but she was still fundamentally the same person. But then when you're talking about a relationship, like her and Sunjae having a relationship, they needed to have those memories in order for their relationship to mean what it meant.
Yeah. And this is why, like, to talk about Goblin for a second, you know, the Yuinna Idonguk relationship, that... like why they couldn't have the relationship and the life that they were in, but also like when they have their next life and they do go for that relationship, it doesn't, like, you don't feel any epic weight in that, even though they're happier, because there isn't the tragedy that's underlying
You got a clean slate.
Yeah. But also it doesn't feel as like meaningful to you the way that other one did, because the weight of pain, the weight of the things that you go through, they add, like, they add to your relationship with somebody. Like, the price of being with someone is part of all of that.
Yeah.
Totally.
I agree.
The only other thing that this drama made me think of was just this concept, which actually I think I trace back probably to Doctor Who, like one of the episodes like a good 10 years ago in the David Tennant era, where he says that, you know, people think time is linear, but time isn't. And in his words, like time is more like a timey-wimey ball of stuff or something like this. Sarah knows what I'm talking about. Yeah.
The very
Wibbly
famous,
wobbly timey wimey.
Oh, yeah,
the very famous quote.
Yeah. So, and I feel like this reiterated that to a degree. I actually really loved when Sol's grandma turned around and was like, you know, that line, which I think is becoming like, I've seen it being used on social media and all these memes of the way in which your memories become smeared into your soul, and things that happen to you don't leave you. And although when we were talking about like, Sol, she goes and she rewrites everything and they have never met, I actually, until now, literally when you guys said, but clearly she had more time because the mum's hand isn't burned and she still had the friendship relationship with Taesung and da-da-da. I actually thought that all of the original timelines happened, but that certain things with certain people were undone. And to me, all of those timelines seemed like layers. And what then Sanjay had at the end was that he understood all the way that those layers had happened. And that's similar to what the grandma was talking about when she was like, you know, there's this thing, what is time, right? Like things can happen and also not happen. Not to again get like philosophical.
That's very true.
But I just feel like
Schrodinger's time,
And Taesung, even though he doesn't remember, he's like, why do I feel like, he tells her, he's like, why do I feel like I used to be in love with you? We never dated.
Yeah.
She's like, don't worry about it.
Think too much.
But there's some part of everyone that has this shared collective memory, or just the idea that you're drawn to one another, or that something was experienced in a particular way, perhaps. And that is why I just really liked that part of the drama, sort of integrating that element into it, and with the grandmother's words, and it coming as well very powerfully from somebody who has dementia. And I think many people who have family members who struggle with that condition, you know, that the times when they do remember things versus when they don't remember things, like just navigating that brings with it its own set of challenges. But the way in which they integrated the wisdom as well as the pleasure that you feel when a relative has those moments where they're lucid was just really lovely.
Can we shout out to Harmony for actually making the whole drama happen? Because if she hadn't taken Sanjay's watch out of the drawer in the first place, she wouldn't have been wearing it that day to the concert, and then she wouldn't have been able to press at the moment of his death. So shout out to Harmony for literally writing this drama.
Did have a moment thinking that maybe she was the kindly hand of fate, like it was because of her. Because everything, as you say, everything was instigated from her actions, but also she gives you the sense, like Hanah, you were saying, like this sense of being untethered in time, because that wasn't the first time that she had said something like that, and it wasn't the first time she had done something that indirectly or inadvertently had helped Sol to like go through this. So I did wonder if actually Harmony was that sort of the hidden figure behind the time travel gift that Sol got.
Like, not that she created the time travel thing, but that she knew, like, she vibed with the same mystical
like she was on the
forces.
frequency, right, right. Like,
she always seemed to know what was
untethered
going
in time.
on.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I loved how she described her dementia, that she was visiting her memories. She was in different timelines in her memories. Like when she missed Sol, then she came back to, you know, the present to visit. So I love that. That was a beautiful way to describe it.
That was, I cried.
Yeah.
I think that's a really beautiful place to leave it, unless someone has something else that they want to.
I just quickly want to defend Sanjay. I do absolutely hold that Sol was the number one protagonist. She needs to have like the lead billing, and she was absolutely the action hero. But what kept Sanjay from becoming just a love interest and kept him an active participant was choosing Sol in every single timeline. Like his agency was never stripped away. No matter what Sol did, it was always his choice to love her again, be with her again, pursue her again. That made his character what it is like. And also,
like, whatever timeline we're in, I'll always love you.
Yes,
Exactly. And in the final, just like one thing, because I enjoyed a couple of moments like that doorway kiss, for instance, where you could literally see the director in the behind the scenes shot. You could see the director telling the actors how to position themselves so that Sol doesn't look like she's being dominated by a much taller guy leaning over her to kiss her. Yeah, I know. The plus she was standing on an apple box. I mean, Kim Hye-sun and that apple box is like legend. Like since Extraordinary You, there is literally a picture with her and Rowan, and she's standing on the apple box, and that's like a magazine cover. So the director was telling Byung-suk not to like make sure that there is enough space, that they are like just directing them in a way that Sol's consent, that her response to him seems equally enthusiastic. I love that whole thing. And towards the end, in the final timeline where he had no memory of Sol, and he still was drawn towards the script, but also clearly drawn to Sol. When he was pursuing the script, like this dog with a bone, it could have easily been really weird. But the fact that he was being that persistent about work and not about romantic interests allowed it not to be so. And the moment he started pursuing her because he was interested, and he stood on the pavement and was like, I'm interested in you. And she's like, no. He's like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, he backs off right away.
Yeah. I like that.
This was so nice. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for tolerating my nonsense and my angry cat gif typing.
You were delightful. You both added so much to this episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
My cheeks are hurting because I've been smiling way too much in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we can't be here an hour longer. Otherwise, that would be great. But
yeah, we definitely can talk for another hour.
Yeah, I would hear scratching at the door.
That's the zombies.
Yeah, where can people find us?
So they can find us on Twitter at Dramas Overflow. You can find me at Not Now Saya.
I'm at Anisa Khalifa _.
I am Porma at The Drama Notes. You can find us on Instagram at Dramas Over Flowers _ It's _ right?
Yes.
Okay. And you can email us at dramasoverflowers@gmail.com.
And our newsletter can be found at dramasoverflowers.substack.com. You can subscribe at the link in the description or just go to the website.
Thank you for listening.
And that's it. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Hanah, once again for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, bye.
Bye.